they're easily overlooked, but the candles burning on our altar offer a gentle reminder that we worship an incendiary God, you and I. A God who delights to set fires in the human heart. The scripture reading was Exodus 3. Moses atop the mountain called Horeb, and is drawn aside from the sheep he is shepherding by a bush which burns but is not consumed. And in an instant, Moses knows that he is on holy ground, that he stands in the presence of an incendiary God. Exodus 13, Moses is leading his rebellious people through the wilderness, and they've lost their way, and God offers dramatically a pillar of cloud by day. Do you remember? Kaya does. God offers a pillar of cloud by day and what? A pillar of fire by night to show them the way. And Moses knows for a certainty that he is being guided by an incendiary God. Exodus 23, the mountain called Sinai, just before the delivering of the Ten Commandments, God wraps the great mountain in a mantle of smoke, and then the presence of God is revealed with the descending of masses of fire down the face of that mountain. And the people tremble. And Moses knows once again that he stands in the presence of an incendiary God. But dear friends, the important thing is not the bush that burns without being consumed. It's not the pillar of fire by night. It's not the fire that descends the face of the mountain. It's the fire that God is igniting in the heart of his servant Moses. The fires of devotion and courage that changed the course of history. And looking back, we still can't be sure. What was the greatest enemy for Moses? Was it the power of Pharaoh? Was it the hostility of that barren landscape that separates Egypt on the south from Canaan on the north? Or was his greatest enemy the childishness, the cantankerous rebellion of his own people? Moving to the New Testament, the book of Acts, chapter 2, you know the story well, probably. Easter is over, Good Friday is gone. The disciples, Peter, John, and the others are disoriented, confused, uncertain about what lies ahead. They've been all together in one place, and suddenly there is a mighty wind like that of hurricane, tropical storm, Faye. And there is this sense that tongues of flame are descending, distributed over the entire room and coming to rest on each one of those disciples. And once again, dear friends, the important thing is not the flames that appear from above. The important thing is the fires, the fire of courage and devotion that are ignited in the hearts of those humble, uncertain disciples, sending them forth to take on what St. Paul calls the powers and principalities of this world with such daring that they changed the course of history. The candles on our altar ask a question. What would happen if an incendiary God sent his flame, his fire, upon this congregation, touching each and every single one of us this morning? What would that be like? One of my good friends in ministry, he's gone now, but he never began a worship service, and he and I were colleagues, so I heard him pray often. Never began a worship service without this prayer. O Lord, take our hands and strengthen them. Open our minds and illumine them, touch our hearts, and set them on fire. My friend was a good Methodist, and he may have been recalling when he offered that prayer, he may have been remembering the experience of John Wesley. Some of you, Methodists, perhaps know the story. John Wesley had a terribly frustrating ministry the first 20 years of his life. Came to this country, to the colonies, to be a missionary to the American Indians, failed miserably. Went home discouraged. On a given night, he very reluctantly went to church. Have you ever gone to church reluctantly? I can tell by your faces, some of you have. On a given Sunday evening, Aldersgate, a little chapel, goes very reluctantly. The lesson is from one of St. Paul's letters, and then there's a commentary. And somehow, in the midst of that reading, John Wesley, the defeated preacher, finds his heart strangely warmed by an incendiary God. And he leaves the pulpit of the Anglican Church. He and his followers, they take the message of Jesus Christ out into the streets, into the taverns, into the fields, into the mines, and they offer that message with such zeal that Wesley not only creates a new denomination, the Methodist Church, he changes the course of English history. What would happen if an incendiary God sent his fires upon us this morning? I love the hymn that we just sang. It's one of my favorites. George Crowley wrote the words. The last stanza that we sang had these words: teach me to love thee as thine angels love, one holy passion filling all my frame, the kindling of a heaven-descended dove, my heart an altar, and thy love the flame. That's what would happen. The beautiful imagery tells us that the true altar for worship is not this one at the front of the sanctuary. Our true altars lie within our hearts. And the ultimate experience of God's presence is for our hearts to become an altar. And God's love, the flame, the holy passion that fills us to overflowing. So the question of the morning in one sense is, have you found your holy passion? Have you been keepers of the flame that God has ignited in your heart? I know God has. If we answer God's call, if we are keepers of God's flame, then we become a passionate people. We can't help it. I love that word passion. I know it has sexual connotations, but I'm not going to go there with you this morning. Passion is also a deeply religious word. It has to do with fervor, with zeal, with enthusiasm. I love that word, enthusiasm. You know, it's based on two Greek words, en theos, in God. If we are in God, we can't help being enthusiastic. And without passion, life is not worth living. It becomes dull and indifferent